Hello, I'm Susan Yates, author and speaker, and this is my husband John. This summer we celebrated 50 years of marriage.
Amazing.
It's amazing, yeah. We can hardly believe it. Over the years, one of the questions we have been asked a lot is, how do you make a marriage last and thrive for this long? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Over the years, John and I have written and spoken a lot on marriage and parenting. In fact, for 20 years we served on the Family Life speaker team for their Weekend to Remember conferences, which we highly recommend for every married couple or engaged couple, no matter how long you've been married. But today, we're not going to give you a talk. Today, we are giving you an invitation into the inside of our marriage, where we just simply want to share with you some of the things that we have learned personally over these last 50 years. Now, be prepared to laugh, because this is totally unrehearsed. I don't know what John's going to say. Some of the things are that he's learned, and he doesn't know what I'm going to say. That's intentional.
And look at our t-shirt.
Yes.
I wore this especially for everybody to see.
Just
50
married
years.
50 years.
Whoa, whoa. She was 12 when I married her.
So, honey, why don't you start? What's something you've learned?
Okay. You know, it sounds really basic, but I think one of the most important lessons you've got to learn if you're going to make a marriage work is that men and women are really completely different. Now, I had a mother, I had a sister, I had girlfriends in college and all, but there's something about being married to someone that you confront things that you just don't understand as a man about a woman. And eventually you learn that what you have to do is, when something happens, when she reacts in a way that seems completely crazy, you just have to step back and say, yeah, but we really are different. And then you have to listen very carefully to her explanation of what's going on in her mind so that you can begin to understand, oh, that's how a woman works. And I'm still learning, okay?
Honey, it's interesting that you would say that, because one of the things that I was thinking about is how we don't realize when we get married how different we are, and how much we have to work the weaknesses of one person to fit the strengths or be compensated by the strengths of the other person. For example, I am very creative. I'm a visionary. I have a ton of ideas.
Lots of them are from me, too, by the way.
I know, there are lots of them for Johnny. But when you have a personality that is creative and visionary, often that can lead to worry, because your imagination goes wild. And one of the things that I had to realize was how God had packaged my husband as just a stable man. He's not particularly a visionary or creative, though he's good at that. But he's Mr. Stable, and that's what I needed. I needed somebody who was stable. I needed someone who would let me generate and dump ideas. And then he has the gift of wisdom, so he can discern when an idea is good, when an idea needs to be postponed, or when it's not good. So I think learning how to see your differences, your strengths and weaknesses, as teammates, you're on the same team, rather than letting them become frustrations. Talk them through and ask, how can we use these to knit us together and make us more whole? That's been something I think we've been learning our whole married life.
Yeah.
What else would you say?
You know, it sounds obvious, but I want to say a word about prayer. In a good marriage, prayer is really important. And when we were in our first year of marriage, we knew we needed to pray together, and so we made a decision that we would pray together every night before we went to bed. And we have done that. We've been faithful to that. We made a promise to God, and we've been faithful to that. And what that does is, on a daily basis, it ensures that the two of you are coming together in the presence of God. And that adds a little extra bond to your relationship. But the other thing is, you can't pray with someone if you're upset with one another. And many times over the years at bedtime, we've been upset with each other about something. And because we had made a promise to pray together, I had to say, look, I'm sorry, or you had to say, look, I'm sorry. We had to work certain things through before we were able to pray. So it's like It's like a built-in safety valve or a shock absorber if you have that commitment to pray together every day. It's been a huge thing in our marriage, don't you think?
It has been a big thing. And I will say that it doesn't mean you stay up late sorting out your issue, because really late at night's not a good time to sort out an issue, because you may say things you regret because you're tired. But what it does do for you, and Johnny's really been great at being disciplined and making us pray together, it brings us back to the Lord together, so that we go to bed saying, okay, we have an issue or we have a problem, and we will work through it. Because it's the three of us. It's you and me and the Lord together.
So what would be a second thing for you?
I think a second thing for me that really ties together with this is the importance of forgiveness. I can't tell you how many times I've had to go to my husband or to one of my children and say, I shouldn't have said what I did, and I need to ask you to forgive me. Or I shouldn't have done what I did, and I need to ask you to forgive me. I can't remember a single time when I have felt like doing that, because I'd rather say, but I'm the wife, or I'm the mom. We go to one another asking for forgiveness, not out of feelings, but out of obedience, because God has called us to ask for forgiveness and to grant it. And I think that's huge. I think forgiveness is probably the most important ingredient in the family. Asking for forgiveness is different than saying I'm sorry. We say I'm sorry like I had to say to you when I ran into the telephone pole with the car.
Oh, you said the car. I think you said the telephone pole ran into you.
Yeah,
if I
but that might have been right. But anyway, that's when I'm sorry is okay. But when you intentionally wound another person in word or deed, you need to go and ask for forgiveness. That opens the door to healing. It doesn't mean you automatically feel great. That's just not realistic.
Okay, we're trying to keep this short, so I've got one more point to make, all right? And it's so important. In a good marriage, you have to have getaways alone together. In other words, life gets complicated. There's always stuff to do at home. If children come, it gets really complicated. We found early on it made a huge difference if we would just pull away. Maybe your mom would come in for a night to stay with the kids or something. But if we would just go away and stay in a friend's cabin, or I remember a couple of times we just went to a local motel so you could get a good night's sleep. But it's very important to get away, to get a little different perspective, to be able to talk without being exhausted. Very helpful for us.
Yeah, you probably remember, honey, but before we were married, we were sort of picking everybody's brains about marriage, and it was an older couple that challenged us to decide now to go on a date once a week and to make a commitment to do that for the rest of your life. And so we thought, okay, that's a good idea, we'll do that. When we were in graduate school, we had no money, and we used to go to a place like Home Depot and walk up and down the aisles and pretend what we would buy if we had any money. But the important principle was taking time to go out to nurture your friendship. A date night or a date day, it doesn't have to be at night, is not a time to go and discuss a hot issue. Do that at another time, because nobody's going to want to go on a date if you know you're going to get kind of hit. The date is the time to nurture your friendship. Having that regular time to connect, to build your friendship has been a really important factor in our marriage.
You know, a friend just asked, in marriage, is it really happily ever after? And it's a good question, because I think a lot of people think that once you're married, at last everything's going to fall into place. Even in the best of marriages, there are many, many, many times when you don't understand each other, when you're not having fun together, when you don't like each other, when you don't want to be with each other. That's just the way it is in a strong and healthy marriage. Two strong individuals are going to bump heads with one another from time to time. And so you have to understand that and not let those times discourage you. You back up, you readjust, and you move forward. Sometimes you have to pull back and say, you know what, we're having a really tough time right now, but we're going to get through it.
And, you know, I'll just add to that, because one of the things that John has said to me when we've been in tough times, and some just circumstances, was, honey, we're on the same team, we're going to get through this. And that sense of hope and the sense of reminder that we're going to make it always encourages me. So we've been talking about fitting together today and sharing some of the things that we've learned. But one of the things that we have also both realized is the power of words and how much we need to build one another up in marriage. So we have a brand new product that two of our friends have written that we're really excited about. This is a book, 100 Words of Affirmation for Your Wife, What She Needs to Hear, by Matt Jacobson.
Lisa has written 100 words of affirmation your husband needs to hear. And they're not just words, but they're ways in which you affirm each other. You know, we know the Jacobsons well, we love them, and these are really helpful little hints to knowing how to appreciate and how to affirm each other. I've read several of these, but I just read you a little bit from one of them. See, Lisa's talking about how to affirm your husband. So I wanted to say, okay, what does she think is affirming for a man? And here's one. She says, let him know that you make me feel like a woman. How about that? Sometimes you can get so buried in all you do that you lose sight that underneath that mountain of responsibility, you're a woman. A warm, breathing, beautiful, thoughtful woman. But that's where your husband comes in. He's there to remind you that you're not only a woman, but you're also his woman. Maybe he shows this by something he says to you or does for you, or perhaps it's merely how he looks at you. These are not little things. They reach your core and remind you of how you were made. So if he brings this out in you, tell him how he makes you feel. I think that's really true.
And this is by Matt, Lisa's husband. And I wanted to read one of the ways that Matt suggests that men can affirm their wives. Simply say, I've learned a lot from you. It takes a humble man to admit that he has a lot to learn. It also takes a smart man to recognize and acknowledge that he's learned a lot from his wife. This most amazing gift God gave you to complete you and make you better in every way. So it's really helpful when those words come to a wife from a husband. We really recommend these books. They're brand new, so check out the links above to find out how to get your copies. Thanks for joining us today. Wherever you are in your marriage, or even if you're thinking about marriage, we hope this will give you some real honest information and a little bit of perspective. And also, we hope you have fun as you grow in your marriage. You never get there. You're always going to be growing, and that's part of the fun.